Good morning and welcome to moving SSIS to Azure. Today we're going to look at migrating SSIS packages to the SSIS runtime in Azure Data Factory. My name's Steve Chester and I will be walking you through this process. So what are we going to look at today? First, I want to have a look at what is actually required to run SSIS packages in Azure. We will then go through how to price up a solution. We will go into some demos and I will set up an Azure Data Factory. We will then set up the SSIS integration runtime in Azure Data Factory. We will get a 2008 package and upgrade that to 2017. Then we will deploy that package to the SSIS integration runtime in the Azure Data Factory we've set up. Then we'll go through how to schedule the jobs. In my demos, I have used managed instance, so we have the luxury of SQL agent jobs. And we will go through how to use that to schedule your packages. If you are not using managed instance, you do have the option of using triggers in Azure Data Factory, and I will show you how to use those. It's important to understand this because you might also have a requirement to build an SSIS package into an overall Azure Data Factory pipeline. And so we'll go through that as well. So what is required to run SSIS in Azure? First of all, we actually need Data Factory itself. For the sake of this SSIS conversation, think of it more as an administrative container that holds everything together. Then we have the SSIS runtime, and this is the engine room behind the whole operation. Although I have to emphasize this is still a fully PaaS service, think of it behind the scenes as SSIS on a number of VMs. This allows you to both scale it up to 64 core machines if required, and you can also scale it out as high as 10 nodes. You also get to select whether you want Enterprise or Standard Edition. The decision points on this are exactly the same as on-prem when you're deciding between Enterprise and Standard Edition. You have to put the SSISDB somewhere. You can either put it on Managed Instance or on Azure SQL DB. For the demonstrations, I'm going to be putting it on Managed Instance as it gives us the benefit of SQL agent jobs. You might also require Azure storage, but this is only necessary if you're wanting to store SSIS custom components. Let's go ahead and price up a solution. The best place to start is our online calculator. The link to that is on the slide in front of you. A couple of decision points. First of all, the region, i.e. which data center. In this case, I will be choosing Western Europe. Your service type will be SQL Server Integration Services. The tier type. Spend a bit of time making the correct decision here as it can influence the price substantially. You have the choice between Standard and Enterprise. The decision points around this here are exactly the same as you would use for an on-prem solution. Instance size. This is how you would scale up your solution, choosing the size of the VM behind the scenes. So this could be anywhere from a 1 core to currently a 64 core. If you want to scale out, how many VMs do you want behind the scenes? You can choose anywhere between 1 and 10 currently. Spend a bit of time thinking about how long the solution will run for every day. An example would be if you were only running it for 2 hours a day, that's 62 hours in a month. And enter that into the pricing calculator to get the most cost-effective solution. Just a caveat here, the SSIS integration runtime does take around 20 minutes to spin up, so make sure you build that into any pipeline timings that you are building. Have a look at AHub, Azure Hybrid Benefits. This gives you credit for your on-prem SQL Server licenses if you're moving to Azure. It is on the condition that you do have software assurance. Right, so I'm just going to go to our online pricing calculator. And first thing we're going to do is search for our product Data Factory. There it is, so let's give that a click and go down and find it. Here it is. So first thing, as I said, would be going to change the service type to integration services. Let's go and have a look at the region. There's a list of all the regions where it's available. I'm going to choose Western Europe. And next thing is tier. So have a look at the price change between Enterprise and Standard. it does influence it, so it's important to make the correct decision here. Don't use enterprise unless you need it. Instance. The biggest instance available is at the moment is the 64 core. Obviously, that does get reflected in the price. For the sake of this demo, I'm just going to use a single core. And I spoke about a hybrid benefits, a hub. If you select this here, you can see how it influences the price as well. So read up on that there, and if you are eligible, it's well worth it. Scaling your solution out, so all the way up to 10 machines. Let's change that back to 1. And then I mentioned how deciding how long you're going to be needing this solution for every day is important. So the 62 hours in a month, obviously that drops the price substantially. And just another question I often get is, can we change the currency of this calculator? And yes, you can. The option is at the bottom there. So next thing we're going to do is actually set up the Azure Data Factory. I'm going to show you how to create it using the web portal. A couple of things. We're going to obviously have to give it a name. We're going to have to put it in a resource group, and important to select version 2. The integration runtime, or SSIS integration runtime, is only available with version 2. And the location we are going to select is Western Europe. Right, let's start by setting up our data factory. First thing we do in our portal is click Create a New Resource. Right, let's search for Data Factory. There it is. And there we go. So if we double click that and click Create, right, let's enter our name. Right, we're going to use an existing resource group as I mentioned. I'm going to use version 2 and we are going to put it in West Europe. Let's click Create. And it is now deploying. This will take a minute or so, probably actually about 30 seconds. Right, looks like it's there. Let's have a look. Yep, it's there. And I'm just going to pin it to the dashboard. It'll make it easier to find. So there it is. Next, we're going to set up the SSIS runtime within the Azure Data Factory we've just created. First thing I'll show you is where to find the author and monitor portal within Azure Data Factory. We will then configure the SSIS integration using that portal. There will be 3 sections to this: general settings, SQL settings, and advanced settings. Under general settings, this is where we give the integration runtime its name. We decide where it's going to go, in this case Western Europe. The node size, we've been through that already. In this case I will select a small D1 and we will just be using one node. The addition we'll select is standard and we will be using a hub. On the SQL settings pane, we will select where we are going to deploy the SSISDB. This is the catalog database service endpoint. It will be going to a managed instance called demo mihack01. We will be using SQL authentication, although this can also be configured to use Azure Active Directory. There are some advanced settings to set as well. The max parallel execution per node, we will be setting this to 1. There's the option to use VNets. We will be using this to make it work with managed instance. And the last thing we'll be doing is validating that that VNet is configured correctly. Right, let's set up the SSIS runtime. So we go back to the Data Factory on my dashboard. Let's find author and monitor in the middle of the screen and double click on that. It takes a few seconds to open up. And right in the middle, we see Configure SSIS integration. Let's double click that. Right, this is our first pane for general settings. We're going to give it a name. You have the option of giving it a description as well. I'm going to just check the location. Yep, Western Europe, that's correct. The size, you have a variety of sizes here. So that's the big one. But I'm going to choose a small one core. Okay. This is next is where you select the node number. Obviously that can go all the way up to 10, as I've explained. I'm just going to leave it at 1. Next is where you choose whether you want standard or enterprise. You can configure a hub here. So I'm going to click yes and then click next. So now we're on to SQL settings. It's actually auto-detected the managed instance, so we don't have to put that in. It's in Western Europe. Yeah, that's all correct. That is the catalog endpoint. I'm just going to switch across to the managed instance, and I think the key thing to notice here is that there is no SSISDB there yet. So if we jump back to our portal, I'm using SQL authentication as mentioned, so we're going to jump on to next. These are the advanced settings. This is where you can set up the third-party tools if required, your advanced settings like how many parallel executions are allowed. And it is also where we are going to set up the VNet. Now it will have auto-detected the VNet because of the managed instance we selected. So you do have the options to double check that, but I'm just going to validate that it is correct and set up correctly. Yes, it is. Great. So we're just going to click next. Here is a summary page of the selections we have made. If you are happy with that, you just click finish. And this takes a few seconds and it will then jump you onto the main page again. Great. So you will see the new runtime. It is in a starting stage. Using video editing, I will chop out the next 20 minutes and 20 minutes of video time and go straight to it being started. There it is. Great. So now we have the integration runtime set up. If we go back to the SQL Server instance, we can see there is now an SSISDB there. Next, I'm going to demo upgrading an actual SSIS package. In this demo, I have built a 2008 SSIS package using Visual Studio 2008. I'll give you a quick run through on how that works, and then we will upgrade that package by opening it with Visual Studio 2017. There are a few ways to upgrade packages. This is just one of them. There are a few issues and a bit of remedial work that we will expect. First of all, the package deployment model will need to be converted to a project deployment model, and I'll show you how to do that. We will need to update and validate the connection strings, and I would also like to convert the connections to project connections. I just find this a lot easier to work with. Last thing we're going to do is actually test the upgraded package against the managed instance that we were working with earlier. I think one of the big things here is to understand, for DBAs to understand that from here on it should be business as usual. This should look very familiar to anyone who's been working with SSIS a lot, and in fact with SQL Server. And just because it's all Azure PaaS-based should make no difference. Right, let's jump across to our 2008 machine. Just to quick demo there, or quick walk through this. 3 source databases, all combining and bringing the data into a database called 2008 DW. Just empty those tables. So here is the package. As you can see, the source just collects some data and puts it into the database called 2008 DW. Let's just run it. It's all run correctly, and let's check if the data is there. We'll just run those select statements again. Yes, they are there. Great. So we're going to switch across to a later machine, and we're going to open that same package in with Visual Studio 2017. And this here will kick off the upgrade process. Just read all the warnings. This is a one-way process, so have a backup if needs be, a separate copy of the file. It does give you a report. If there are no issues in that, we carry on. First thing is we want to convert the package deployment model to a project deployment model. So we convert this here, will start a wizard, and it walks you through the process. And click, yeah, there we go. That part's done. Now let's open the actual package. We are expecting to do a bit of work with the connection string. So, all right, let's open up the connection manager. You do have all the normal options here. And right, the server name. Let's get the name of the managed instance. Right, let me paste that in there. And as I will be using SQL authentication. Let's test the connections and click OK. Great. And as I said, I like to convert this here to a project connection string. Great. So let's give that package a quick run, see it all works. Great, and check the data is there. Great. Next, we're going to be deploying the SSIS package from Visual Studio using the wizard, and then we will be testing the package from the SSIS catalog on managed instance. Right, let's deploy the SSIS solution. First thing we want to do is build it. Check there are no errors, and then click deploy. Let's fill in the name of our managed instance, and we are going to use a SQL Server authentication. And once you've filled in your password, just remember to click connect, and let's browse to the SSISDB. We're going to create a new folder called Hacko1. And then deploy the package. Once it is deployed, we will go to the Integration Services catalog. Right, let's refresh that and drill down inside there. Great, and we can see our package. Great. So we're going to run this manually, so let's clear out the data first. Check nothing's there. And let's go back into the package and execute it. Okay, that and execute. Yeah, and this will give you the report you will expect. So here is the report, and it's drilled down into that there. Yeah, it gives you a bit of detail, and it has executed successfully. So let's check the data is there. Great. So that has worked as expected. Right, let's have a look at how to use SQL agent jobs to execute the SSIS package. What we'll do is we'll set it up and then manually trigger it and check the data is there. So first thing we want to do is go down into SQL Server Agent, right click New Job. Let's give the job a name. And then we add in a new step. And give the step a name. Switch to the correct run type. And now we can use the area button to drill down and find the package. Good. There is a configuration tab and connection tab. This is where you can change things at runtime. This is exactly what you would expect if you were using on-prem as well. Right, let's OK that and go to Schedules and schedule it to run daily at 4 AM. Great. So let's test it out. We'll truncate our tables, check there's no data in there, and then manually kick off the job. Right. Let's close that and we'll check the activity monitor, refresh that, yes, and it has executed correctly. So let's check if our data is there. It has worked as expected. Next, I'm going to show you how to call an SSIS package from within ADF itself. This is important to understand if you are going to be using Azure DB, where you don't have the luxury of having SQL agent jobs, or you might be wanting to incorporate an SSIS package into a wider data flow within an ADF pipeline. Right, so let's go and open up our Data Factory and go to Author and Monitor. So we are now going to create a new pipeline. Use the little pencil on the left-hand side and create a pipeline. From here, you have a number of options, but the one we're interested in is under General, where you drag in the Execute SSIS package icon. You click on Settings, and this will let you configure it. So you'll select your managed instance from the drop-down, and then be able to drill down to the specific package. So you have environments, you have SSIS parameters, connection managers as you would expect, so you can change all of this here at runtime. I'm just going to publish this. And now I will show you how to configure a trigger. So this gives you two options. Trigger now would make it run immediately, or you can set up a trigger to run at a future time. New trigger, And let's configure one to run daily. Right, and you could fill in your time there. Great. So it's pretty simple and intuitive, and that is how you would schedule it within Azure Data Factory. Thanks for your time. I hope you found this helpful, and good luck migrating all your SSIS packages to Azure Data Factory.